So folks, let's talk about this training course. It is a relatively new course. As I said, my name is Greg Mills. I am with Sunset Learning Institute. And probably about 8-9 months ago, we started working on this course for Arista. Okay. It is designed for to teach people about campus networking using Arista switches and Arista APs. So let's go ahead and get rolling on my slides so I can kind of talk about the stuff that are on the slides as well. All right. So we're going to talk about what's in this course. If we have some time, I'm going to demonstrate some of the hands-on labs, or at least the lab environments for you. And then, of course, we'll do Q&A as well. So as a reminder on Q&A, while I'm speaking, if you do have questions, if you put them in the Q&A screen, the Q&A panel, I do have that up. I am kind of monitoring that as well as the chat. So that's one way to get my attention to ask about things related to this course. So as I was starting to say, this course, we started building this about 8 or 9 months ago. And I am the primary developer of this course for Sunset. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and, kind of coming in, taking a look at Arista networks and their capabilities, which were surprising to me when I first started looking at them. But this course is designed for engineers who you already know about switching, or at least you know the basics about switching, VLANs, trunking, those kinds of things. And then also you already have the basics on Wi-Fi, otherwise known as wireless networking, otherwise known as 802.11 networking. So you already know about the different standards or the different amendments, 802.11n, 802.11ac, even AX. You're already familiar with how to set up an AP, maybe setting up some SSIDs, service set identifiers, right? But again, the course is going to show you how to do so with a campus network running Arista switches and Arista APs, all right? Now, part of this course, as I said, we kind of expect you to already come in knowing about the basics for Wi-Fi. But so far, every time we've run this course, we've been able to spend some extra time just kind of filling in gaps for folks that maybe are new to Wi-Fi or maybe a little bit rusty on Wi-Fi. So we certainly can do that for you as well. And one of the things about Arista is they are big on whiteboarding, doing live demonstrations, and of course, hands-on labs. So this course, we do go off the slides a lot. We do go to the whiteboard a lot to draw things out to hopefully better demonstrate what it is that we're talking about or to illustrate what we're talking about. And then, of course, we'll go on the systems and we'll demonstrate some of the components, some of the functions that you might see in the Arista platforms, such as CloudVision Portal, and then also CloudVision WiFi. They're two main management / automation platforms. So that being said, I just want to kind of run through what it is that we cover. All right. And don't worry, everyone, when you come to the actual course, you won't see this big copyright splashed across the slides. Okay. But this course, we usually start off like a lot of training courses, talking about fundamentals, right? So, but in this case, we're going to be talking about traditional architectures. So the good old 3-layer hierarchy, core, distribution, and access layer, right? So we talk about that. We talk about how those networks were designed and the fact that that's good for north-south traffic. So traffic going from here at the access layer up through the distribution layer, up to the core layer, up to another distribution layer, up to an access layer, and then the other direction as well. So what we kind of refer to as north-south. So we do that review. We talk about that. And then we talk about the need for kind of a different way of doing things, right? So present day networks, Well, again, if you don't know, Arista came from the data center side of the house. And so in the data center networks, a lot of modern networks, now we talk about virtual machines and being able to move virtual machines from one host to another through the data center, right? So now instead of going north-south, we're going east-west, okay? However, outside the data center, if you think about it, if we're doing Wi-Fi and we have a bunch of Wi-Fi laptops or a bunch of Wi-Fi tablets or smartphones or what have you, those folks are moving around as well. And they're going from this AP to this AP to this AP down at the access level, right? Down at in Arista, what we would call the LEAP or the campus pods, okay? So we need to start thinking about this traffic flow instead of being north-south to be east-west. So we kind of talk about that. And of course, BYOD, bring your own device, IoT devices. These are all now down in the campus as well, down at the access part of the campus. And so we need to allow for those devices to be able to communicate to each other as well, all right? We talk about the fact that, again, bringing in IoT devices, a lot of enterprises, a lot of organizations might have hundreds or even thousands now of IoT devices. And BYOD, of course, bring your own device, means people are bringing in their laptops, as I said, their tablets, their phones. And so now we probably also need to better segment our networks for security, for control, and so on. So we talk about the need for that, all right? And we'll discuss that out, okay? And then, of course, we talk about visibility. So we have this network now. We have all these components. We have these IoT devices, the BYOD devices, these mobile devices. Well, we need a better way of looking at what's going on through the network, all right? So again, some of you are probably familiar with good old SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, where we do polling every so often to say, hey, is this network okay? Hey, is this network okay? Hey, is this network okay? But the problem with polling is things can happen in between the polling. So devices can go offline, they can come back online. And if all we're doing is we're checking every so often and we see them still there, then we think everything's okay. So we're going to talk about the fact that with Arista, we're not going to depend on polling anymore. One of the big things with Arista is now they do what we call real-time state streaming. And I'll show you that here in a little bit when we get there, all right? From there, we're going to talk about what Arista calls their UCN, their Universal Cloud Network, okay? Now, again, this has been around for a while in data centers. You might hear a lot of this as well if you're doing Arista data center, but this also applies to the campus networks, all right? So when we're talking about our campus devices, we have our access switches, we have our, what I'll call distribution/core switches, although we don't use those terms anymore. Now we use leaf spine. So we have our leaf switches, we have our spine switches that all the leaves connect into, and the spines are the ones that provide the path from leaf to leaf for this east-west traffic flow, right? Well, we also talk about the fact that we have two ways of connecting these leaf switches to the spine switches, okay? The first one is layer 2. So by layer 2, we're saying, hey, these are all layer 2 links. In the world of VLANs, we're going to trunk our VLANs from leaf to spine to leaf. And so the good thing about this is now I have layer 2 connectivity throughout my campus, throughout my campus network, okay? But as, again, those of you that have been working with networking know, whenever we talk about layer 2, there are some limitations, right? So spanning tree is a big one, right? Because if I have multiple links that create a loop through my layer 2 domain, my layer 2 connections, spanning tree is going to start to block some of those to prevent those loops, okay? But nonetheless, we talk about how to connect our leaves and our spines using layer 2 connections, all right? And then we also talk about how to connect our leaves and spines using layer 3 IP routed links. All right. And again, those of us in networking, we know, well, layer 3 routing, that's pretty cool. I can have a routing protocol to figure out what is the best path from leaf to leaf through the spines, right? And I don't have to worry about spanning tree. Okay. So we have OSPF or BGP or ISIS, or even RIP if you choose to do so, or even static routes to help us make these paths through this layer 3 connected leaf spine network. All right. And we do talk about some other benefits when we're doing either L2LS or L3LS. Right. Another thing that we spend quite a bit, not a lot, but a significant amount of time on is something called Mlag, or multi-chassis link aggregation. All right. And if you're not familiar with this, other vendors have other terms for this. For example, there's a company that starts with the letter C. They call this VPC, virtual port channel. But in Arista, we call it Mlag. So with Mlag, what are we going to do? We're going to take two physical switches, and we're going to combine them so that they logically look like a single switch, like this picture down below. Sorry. All right. The benefit that I get from this is now my downstream switches, we can do link aggregation of our links to those two physical switches that are upstream, right? And so now, again, we're getting around spanning tree, even though we're doing layer 2 connections right here, right? We're combining those links to look like one link to spanning tree. So spanning tree doesn't start to block any of those links. And the cool thing about this is because I look like a single physical switch with a single link that is upstream, both these links are active and both these switches are active. If one fails, the other one's still there. We still have the path through the other one to get to wherever we need to go. So we will talk about Mlag. We'll show you how to configure Mlag. Right? And we'll actually have you do this in one of the hands-on labs. Show you how to run Mlag and how to see that it's working. Right? Well, of course, this is a campus course, so we are going to talk about Arista's campus portfolio. So we're going to introduce you to the switches that are designed to be spine switches that all the leaf switches connect up into, right? And we're going to talk about the different flavors. So whether they're 1RU, 2RU, whether they're modular, right? We're going to talk about the leaf switches, right? And one of the points I want to make right now is when we talk about Arista, again, coming from the data center, well, they had spine switches, they have leaf switches in the data center, but in the campus network, our leaf switches are now designed to, of course, do the same thing, a lot of very fast switching, a lot of other capabilities, but with power over Ethernet, right? So now we can plug in our APs, we can plug in whatever else we need to plug in that requires power over the Ethernet cable, and we can deliver that. And we'll talk about how to set that up. We'll talk about the capabilities with PoE as part of this course. Okay? And then, of course, we're going to talk about the APs. So there's a variety of APs that are supporting Wi-Fi 6, otherwise known as 802.11ax. And of course, they're backward compatible with AC and N. Okay. And then we also have an AP that we'll talk about, which is good for Wi-Fi 6E, which, if you're not familiar, is also 802.11ax. But now we're using the new frequency band when we're doing 6E. So now we're using the 6 gigahertz band. So we'll talk about these, kind of introduce you to them, show you what the capabilities are, and then later on, we show you how to set them up. Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the big management / automation systems for Arista is CloudVision Portal. Okay. And so a lot of what we do with Arista switches If you choose to do so, you can still do so through the command line interface, just like you may have done with other vendor switches, right? But if you want to automate things, if you want to maintain consistency and so on, then you're going to want to probably run things through CloudVision Portal. Again, their management / automation tool. All right. So with CloudVision Portal, we'll spend about a day talking about CVP, CloudVision Portal. And in here, we're going to talk about how we can use it to do device provisioning. And we'll cover zero-touch provisioning, zero-touch replacement. Okay. We'll talk a lot about how to use CloudVision Portal to manage your configurations. So there's a few different ways of doing so. I'm going to mention 3 of them on upcoming slides. But one of the big things, and this is something that really impressed me when I came into Arista almost a year ago, was the telemetry. So we're going to use CloudVision Portal as a central point for all of your switches, all your devices, to send real-time streaming information to be collected into CVP, and then to go through it and to look at it, to monitor it, to see what's going on with your switches, to see what's going on with your network. Very, very capable through CloudVision Portal, through this real-time streaming. Okay. We'll talk about CVP also as your NetOps platform. So automatically deploying devices, compliance and risk management, real-time telemetry, as I just said, and then also change controls. So again, I've been doing this networking for a few years now. And so I remember the days when I could just go into the data center or go into the wiring closet and plug in my changes. But then I got yelled at because I didn't go through the change control process, right? Well, the cool thing with CloudVision Portal, change control is built into it. So I might make configuration changes, but they will not get applied until there's a change control created that includes those tasks that are going to implement those changes. And then that change control needs to be approved and then either executed or scheduled for execution later on. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that capability. All right. Now, one of the things about Arista that if you're new to Arista might be a little bit confusing or different is a concept called configlets. All right. And everyone, a configlet is just a part of a configuration for a device. And so one of the, again, good things after you learn it about configlets is you can build modular configs. So you might have some configurations that apply to all your devices throughout your network. You might have other configurations that are applied to some of the devices in your network. And then you're going to have other configuration commands that are individual to a single device. Well, these are all done through configlets. So I'm going to build these files, these configlets, and they're going to maintain sets of configuration commands, whether it's global for all my switches, whether it's partial for some of my switches, or whether it's individual for a single switch. So we're going to talk about configlets, the hierarchy inside a CloudVision Portal, how that all works together. And then we're going to talk about configlet builders. All right. So y'all, configlets, I went in and I typed in my commands. And then I saved them as configlets. Okay. Well, configlet builders, now we're getting more dynamic. So configlet builders, now we're going to use Python. We're going to use scripting. And if you don't know Python, if you don't understand scripting, not to worry. We're going to cover just the basics in this course, right? This is not a Python course. But we're going to show you enough to make these configlet builders work. But the cool thing with this is now when you apply this to a switch, the script is going to run, and we're going to ask you some of the information that we need to build the final config. So we may ask you for an IP address, a VLAN number, whatever, and then we dynamically create the configlet based off the information that you provide either through a form, or maybe we go read it from a file, or maybe we go input information from the system. All right. So again, this is a little bit more dynamic than just configlet builders, because we're doing scripting. But then we're also going to talk about studios. Forgive me. All right, it's early morning for me. Studios, now you don't even need to know the configuration commands. Now you don't need to do the scripting, it's already done for you. So with studios, and you can create your custom studios if you want to do your own, but there's some built-in studios where, okay, you don't know the commands, you don't really understand the technology or the whatever it is, the feature that you're trying to set up. Well, now you can go through studios. And studios, we're just going to ask you to fill in some boxes. So as I say down here, I kind of refer to it as wizards, right? Hey, fill in this information, fill in that information, and then we'll run the studio, or we'll run the workspace that contains the studio, and that'll go out and configure your devices for you, okay? So you don't even need to know how to configure, you don't even know the commands, you don't need to know the commands to configure your devices if you want to run studios. So again, we'll talk about all three methods: configlet static, configlet builders dynamic with scripting, and studios. We do it all for you. Yeah. So that's the configuration piece. As I said, we'll also talk quite a bit about change control. So now, whether you ran configlets, configlet builders, or studios, well, those changes don't get applied immediately when you're configuring your switches or your other devices, right? They need to go through this change control process. So we'll talk about how to set up change controls, how to manipulate the tasks, the configuration tasks, or maybe the software management tasks that are part of the change control. And then we'll talk about being able to approve them, and then of course executing them when you choose that it's the appropriate time to do so. Right? All right. Now, I mentioned before telemetry, and I mentioned before how awesome I thought it was when I started to work with Arista. Right? So we cover that in this course as well. So EOS, if you're not familiar, that's what Arista calls their operating system. Extensible OS, extensible operating system. But unlike other vendors, one of the things that you'll find if you're new to Arista, like I was, is that every single switch, regardless of if it's leaf or spine, data center or campus, runs the same operating system, the EOS. All right. So that part's cool. So I don't need to learn 7 or 8 or maybe 4 or 5 different operating systems for my network. I need to learn the one and see how it works, right? But the other really cool thing about the EOS is this thing called the SysDB, System Database. And all these processes that are running inside of EOS, and by the way, this is Linux, they're going to collect state information about almost everything that's going on that device. All right. And so they're going to collect all this information into this thing called the SysDB, right? But then what's going to happen, and here it is here, sorry. So we're collecting all the state information into SysDB. But then what's going to happen is all your devices, they stream that information real time up to CloudVision. And so now we are seeing everything when it happens. We're not polling. We're gathering information from all these systems, and they're telling us every time there's been a change. So if there's a new route added to the routing table, a new VLAN went or whatever, a new VLAN was created, but you can see it's all kinds of things. It's not just VLANs and routes. It's just about anything that might happen on the system gets sent up to CloudVision. CloudVision collects all this information from all these systems, and then we refer to this collection as the NetDB, the network database. And so now I see all my systems, I see them all real time, I see what's going on with them, and I can correlate information from multiple systems together to try to really see what's going on with my network, what's happening. Okay. So we will talk about that in here. And as I said, we talk about the evolution as well. So we went from sysdb on the devices. We collect all that information together into something called NetDB. And then now with 2022, now there's Net Data Lake. And so now we're making all this information even more widely available, not just inside a CloudVision Portal, but as I show you here, all kinds of third parties can tie into CloudVision, collect this information, share information with CloudVision, and it just makes your network very, very visible, very, very manageable, and just stuff that I wish I had seen with working with other vendors prior to Arista. Okay. All right. As I said, we gather all this information real time. And so now we can go into CloudVision Portal and we can really, really see what's going on with the network. So if you're not familiar with Arista or CloudVision Portal, this is the topology view of your network. We're going to show you everything that's connected to everything. But we're also going to show you whatever you need to know. So, hey, I can do this. I can go in here and I can say, show me VLANs. Show me where VLAN 7 is. Show me traffic flows. So when traffic's traveling from this source to this destination, show me the path that it's actually taking. And again, we're not guessing. We know the path because we're getting this information real time from every single device. Right? We'll talk about data plane visibility, and this is one of the big things that I found with Arista. Seeing everything that's going across your network when it comes to different applications, different types of data, right? And so we're going to see this, and we're seeing it inside of CloudVision, and we'll talk about how to do this, how to see this. But then also we'll see this inside of their other management / automation platform, CloudVision WiFi. So we do talk about this in the course as well. All right. As I said, we'll talk about layer 2 spines, or sorry, layer 2 leaf spine, or layer 2 connected leaf spine, where I have my campus devices, maybe connecting to my campus spine devices via layer 2. And again, we'll probably do Mlag. We'll talk about how to do Mlag up here. We'll talk about how to do this link aggregation, because this is all layer 2. Okay. And then, as I said, we'll also talk about how to do it using layer 3. So again, all IP routed links here. Maybe I'm running a routing protocol that determines what is the best path for traffic to take to get from any pod to any other pod, to any other leaf, right? Now, the one point I want to make here, we talk about the fact with layer 2 connections, we can span our VLANs across multiple pods, right? Across multiple campus pods. If this is layer 3, then these VLANs, they're individual, they're independent from one another, because as we know when we're doing networking, VLANs, once we hit a layer 3 connection, the VLAN stops, all right? But then we talk about how do we get these VLANs to go across from pod to pod? And so we talk about VXLAN, virtual extensible LAN, I think it is. But we talk about how to use VXLAN to carry our layer 2 networks through the layer 3 interconnects, so that I am able to span my VLANs across different parts of my network. And it's not just campus pod to campus pod. We talk about how to do it up to the data center. So I might have VLANs that go all the way up to the data center. or as I showed in this slide, maybe even out to the public cloud. So, and we care about this, if you don't know, we care about this a lot when we're talking about Wi-Fi in the campus networks, because now we want to have mobility for our clients. So whether they move from this AP to this AP, that's maybe part of a different campus pod. If we can extend this layer 2 domain, this VLAN, then it's a lot easier for our devices to run. So we talked about that and how to set that up. All right. And when we're using VXLAN, we also talk about Evpn, Ethernet Vpn. So we talk about VXLAN as far as carrying our layer 2 traffic across, but then we also explain why we want to use Evpn as part of that. So with Evpn, and again, I'm not supposed to teach the course right now, but with Evpn, now we use that as the control plane. We use VXLAN as the data plane. And so VXLAN will still carry our traffic across, but Evpn will allow our edge devices to know how to reach each other and who's over here as far as MAC addresses, who's over here as far as MAC addresses. So now we really have true layer 2 connectivity across a layer 3 connection. Okay. And again, we'll teach you that in the course. Right? Then we talk about good old CV Wi-Fi, CloudVision Wi-Fi. And this is the management / automation platform for your access points, for your wireless clients, for your applications that are going across Wi-Fi. Right? Now, if you look at this nowadays, CV Wi-Fi is now called CUE, Cognitive Unified Edge. Right? Nonetheless, we're going to show you how it works. All right. So you can see here, there's a whole variety of features and capabilities that are part of CV Wi-Fi. And we're going to explain each one of these. So show you what happens, show you how to look at this information, how to set it up, how to configure it if you need to do so, right? And how to get the benefit from having full visibility into your Wi-Fi clients, your Wi-Fi access points, and the applications that are going across your Wi-Fi network. I'll show you a few of those slides coming up. Okay. So we talk about how we do organization inside of CV Wi-Fi. So we set up these folders that represent locations, and you put your APs into these location folders, and now they receive the configuration for that location, for that folder. All right. We can put floors into folders, and now that allows us to import floor plans. So we'll talk about how to do that, right? And then we also have, in addition to folders, we have groups. All right. So an example of this is I might have a can't really read it. All right, let's go down here, New York City. And so all my APs that are in New York City, I want them to have certain settings because of their location. But then inside of New York City, I'll have different types of APs. Maybe outdoor APs, maybe, I don't know, office APs, maybe warehouse APs, right? And so now I want to apply not only a configuration based on their location, but a configuration based on what type of AP they are. What are they doing, right? So we'll talk about how folders and groups, how we can use those together to really, really define the configuration that we want on our APs. And of course, we're not going to talk about Wi-Fi without talking about SSIDs, service set identifiers, right? So we'll walk through all the configurations that you're going to need to set up your SSIDs for your wireless networks. So the ones over here in green are the mandatory tabs that we need to configure, so basic security and network. But then we're going to talk about some of these optional tags that are in, I think this is orange. I'm colorblind, all right? Such as RF optimization, setup of captive portals, traffic shaping, access control. We're going to show you how to configure all that using CV Wi-Fi for your wireless networks, your SSIDs. Right? We will also talk about radio frequency optimization, how to set that up. We'll talk about some of these features that are in Arista, right? So smart client load balancing, smart steering, RSSI-based association, band steering, and so on. I'll explain those out, or we in the course will explain those out to you, right? And you can decide whether or not you need them, whether or not you want them, to try to fine tune how your RF, how your radio frequencies are being used. Right? We'll talk about SSID to VLAN mapping and how, and this is nothing new, this is not specific to Arista, but if I have SSIDs, those get bridged to VLANs, then of course I need to carry those VLANs up to the APs, but we'll talk about how that works. All right. Now, I told you when I first came to Arista and saw these automation project or tools that I got excited. All right. And one of the things that really excited me, and again, I'm a Wi-Fi person, I've gone back to Wi-Fi for more than 20 years, was this right here, heat maps. All right. So one of the really great things about CloudVision Wi-Fi, and we'll show you how to do this in the course, is if I import a floor plan into CV Wi-Fi, in that floor plan, I have obstacles that I've configured. And we'll show you how to do that as well. Okay. Now I can run these heat maps and see exactly what's going on with my Wi-Fi. So I can see coverage, link speed, channels being used, sensor for whips, and so on. How well that's working on my floors based on the location of my APs. All right. Now you may say, yeah, I've seen heat maps before. But the cool thing that I thought was when I was using other vendors' products, I'd have to go use a separate thing to look at heat maps, a separate application. This is built in. Again, we'll show you how to do this. We'll show you how to see this as part of the course. All right. Of course, we're going to show you how to update your firmware on your APs. And if you're new to Arista, another thing is, unlike other vendors, your APs can be running on different versions of firmware. So that's going to allow you to decide when and if to update the firmware on the APs. They don't all automatically get updated when you first change the firmware somewhere else. Everybody has to change. No. So we'll show you how to set this up. And we'll show you how to do it for existing APs, for new APs, to schedule these firmware updates. And then we'll show you how to run manual firmware updates as part of this training course as well. Okay. Then we get into some of the visibility. So client journey, we're going to show you in CV Wi-Fi or CUE, we're going to show you every client on the Wi-Fi network and what they've been experiencing, what it is that they're facing, if they're facing issues, how well they're operating. All right. So this is one of the things we'll talk about. We actually spend a fair amount of time on the client journey, kind of going through, looking at everything that we can see about the clients. We'll show you how to enable auto packet capture. All right. And this is where one of the APs, or maybe in the case of Arista, multiple APs, are capturing wireless packets so that you can analyze them. You can download them to your local PC into Wireshark, or Arista also offers an online analyzer tool called Packets. It will show you how to turn this on. We'll show you how to set this up, and we'll show you how to load these capture files and to be able to review them. Root cause analysis engine. Another thing that I really liked about this with Arista was not only we're going to show you if a client's facing issues, but we're going to give you suggestions possibly causing those issues. So again, I've been doing Wi-Fi forever. I consider myself pretty good with Wi-Fi, but every once in a while, it doesn't hurt for me to get a reminder of, hey, maybe go look at that, or hey, maybe check this, right? That's what the RCA does, the root cause analysis engine. It's going to tell you when your clients are facing certain issues, what possible causes are there. We'll talk about this. Live client debugging. We'll show you how to set this up so that now if a client's saying, hey, man, I can't connect, or hey, something's not working right, I can go in here and notice the word live. I can go into CV Wi-Fi and I can monitor, I can see everything that that client does, everything that the system is doing with that client, and I can watch for failures. I can see what's going on. So we'll show you how to set that up. Again, I'm kind of halfway teaching the course, aren't I? All right. Access point details. So as I said, not just the clients, but we're also going to show you much more detailed information about your APs. So what are they doing? Who are they servicing? Who's connected to them? We'll show you how to view that inside of CV Wi-Fi. Okay. Another cool thing that I really liked with Arista was this thing called RF Explorer. And again, if you've been working with Wi-Fi, you may be familiar with spectrum analyzers, where you're monitoring the radio frequency spectrum to see not just Wi-Fi, but whatever else is out there. Well, we'll show you how to use the built-in tool to do that, called RF Explorer. And again, we're going to show you maybe not all the beautiful color that we might see with a $10,000 spectrum analyzer, but we're going to show you how much energy is being used throughout the RF spectrum. So you can see when there's interference. You can see where there's channels that are being overloaded. And again, we're going to show you how to do that. All right. I keep saying cool things about Arista, but it's true. Another cool thing with Arista, most of the Arista APs have a spare radio. So we have a radio servicing 2.4 gigahertz for those clients. We have a radio servicing 5 gigahertz for those clients. But then we have a third or fourth radio. All right. And one of the things that we can use that third radio for is we can tell one of our APs to pretend to be a client and try to connect to the network. And so the great thing about this is now if my AP is pretending to be a client, we can do all kinds of testing inside of CV Wi-Fi. So you can see here, and I know the copyright went over some of this, but I can pretend to be a client, see how well I can associate, authenticate, get my IP addresses, measure WAN latency, measure some applications, see how well they would go across this connection, pretend to be a voice over IP call, and so on. And of course, we're going to be able to go in and see the results. So we're going to show you how to set that up, how to use this AP that has that third radio to do client connectivity testing. All right. So we show you clients, we show you the APs, but we also show you detailed information about the applications that are going across the network, right? And so, again, you identify, and with Arista, you can identify up to 25 apps that you want the system to pay special attention to to gather all the information about, so that you can go in and you can see what's going on with that application's traffic. All right. So as you can see, this looks a lot like clients and APs, and it is. We're going to show you very detailed information about multiple applications or a single application's traffic through CloudVision Wi-Fi. And again, we'll show you how to set that up, how to view that. And a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about, I forgot to mention that we have hands-on labs where not only are we, the instructors, talking about it, but you're going to get to go in and review it on your own as well. Okay. All right. And then we finally wrap up the course on the 5th day, talking about some security. So we talk about using some of the Arista tools to monitor and to protect our networks, right? So some of this is stuff that we've been doing or that you've been doing with other vendors as well. All right. But we will explain how to use the same features, the same capabilities in Arista. But then we're also going to talk about some of the specific capabilities that are only in Arista. All right. So we talked about the security tools, and one of those tools is WIPS, Wireless Intrusion Prevention System. All right. And again, another cool thing about that spare radio, that third or fourth radio on your Arista APs, is now I can tell that Arista AP, hey, that spare radio, use that to do dedicated scanning for wireless intrusion prevention. Okay. Well, other vendors will also support WIPS, right? But other vendors, they don't have this separate radio, so they have to do scanning part-time. I go service, I'm an AP, I go service clients, and then I time out, I go a little bit of scanning for about 100 milliseconds, then I go back to servicing clients, and then I scan a little bit longer, and then I service clients, and I go back, and so on. Well, with this dedicated radio on the Arista APs, this is full-time scanning. So now, instead of, where is it on here? Well, I don't show it on this slide, but when we're doing part-time scanning, what we call background scanning, it takes about 6 minutes to scan the entire 5 gigahertz spectrum. Okay. Arista, because we're doing dedicated scanning, 4 seconds. All right, there it is, almost 6 minutes. It's actually 6.3 something minutes, right? So again, we'll talk about this. We'll show you how this is a better benefit than doing background scanning. Just have a dedicated scanning. And in this course, I don't have the slides here, but in this course, we're going to show you this, but we're going to show you some of the other things that this dedicated scanning can provide for you. Right. One of them happens to be this one here, marker packets. Notice this trademark for Arista. So we'll explain to you what marker packets do, but I'll show you real quickly here. I'm a good AP, there's a bad AP, what we call a rogue, right? And so we're going to send out little packets that are, for lack of better words, kind of traps. So we're going to send out packets that shouldn't go anywhere, but when this rogue AP floods those packets back to us over the wireless, we know it's a rogue AP. And going the other direction as well. We send these marker packets over the Wi-Fi. When this rogue AP picks them up and sends them onto the wired network, we're able to see that as well. I'll show you how that works, explain that out to you, show you how to set that up. Okay. And I think, yep, that is. All right. So one of the things that we wanted to let you all know for attending is there is a campus class running October 10th through the 14th. It's a 5-day session. All right. If what I've talked to you about for the last 50 minutes sounds like something you'd like to get into and get to more details on and spend more time discussing, we'd invite you to attend. Right? And we'd like it so much for you to attend that if you use this promo code, you get 20% off the price for the training. Right? So 20 campus. Okay. And with that, my last slide is a thank you. So now, everyone, I will kind of open this up. If you have a question or if you have a comment or you want to clarify something, you can either put it in the Q&A or not supposed to tell you you can do this, but you can put it in chat. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. All right, not seeing any questions. Again, let me repeat this, put this back up. So if you want to come to the course, again, here's a good one to start. And I forgot to mention it's guaranteed to run, which means when you sign up for it, we're not going to come back and cancel it on you. It's guaranteed to run. I do have a question. Know of any plans on merging CUE within CVP? I do know that it's in the works, David, but I can't tell you specifically because I don't know. I can't tell you specifically when it's going to happen. But again, the whole point about CUE, the Cognitive Unified Edge, was now we want to be able to manage our APs, our wireless, and our wired network as a single entity. So it's coming, but I can't tell you when because mainly I don't know particularly when. Okay. Well, guys, with that being said, thanks very much for your attention and hope to see you in one of these sessions. Okay. All right. So take care, everyone.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.